It was a tranquil Sunday evening, the kind where the golden hues of the setting sun cast a serene glow over everything. The stillness felt almost tangible, wrapping the world in quiet peace. I was in the garage, tinkering with the old Chevrolet that had consumed my attention for months. It wasn't just a car to me. It was an escape, a place to lose myself. Mark, my husband, rarely ventured into the garage. He much preferred his recliner and a football game on TV. But tonight was different. It wasn't Mark who joined me. It was his son, Ethan. Ethan, now 19, had returned home for the summer after his first year at college. He was taller, more self-assured, and carried a quiet charm that made him stand out. Stepping into the dimly lit space, he asked, "Need a hand?" I was surprised. He'd never shown much interest in the car before. "Sure," I said, handing him a wrench. We worked side by side, the air thick with the scent of oil and grease. At first, the conversation was light. His classes, his friends, and his plans for the future. But as the evening progressed, the mood shifted. Ethan's tone grew softer, his words more personal. "You know," he began, his voice hesitant, "you've been more of a parent to me than my mom ever was." The weight of his words hit me hard. Ethan's mother, Mark's ex-wife, had always been a sensitive topic. I had done my best to fill the void she left, but hearing those words from Ethan stirred something deep within me. My chest tightened with emotion. "I just wanted you to know how much I appreciate you," he said, his voice sincere. I smiled, trying to mask the blush rising in my cheeks. "That means a lot, Ethan," I replied. But even as I spoke, I couldn't ignore how his gaze lingered on mine just a moment too long, or how the air between us felt charged with something unspoken. Over the next few weeks, Ethan began spending more time in the garage. We'd laugh, talk, and work on the car for hours. Mark noticed a change, but didn't think much of it. "Glad to see you two bonding," he'd say with a grin. Little did he know, the bond Ethan and I were forming wasn't entirely innocent. It started with small things, a touch that lingered when he handed me a tool, the way his eyes seemed to follow me when he thought I wasn't looking. At first, I dismissed it, chalking it up to my imagination. But one evening, as we stood shoulder to shoulder, his hand brushed against mine. Neither of us pulled away. The moment stretched between us, heavy and undeniable. "Ethan," I whispered, my heart pounding. "This isn't right." His eyes met mine, filled with a mix of longing and guilt. "I know," he said softly, "but I can't help how I feel. I should have stopped it there. Walked away. Told Mark. Done anything to put an end to it. But I didn't. Instead, I let Ethan kiss me. It was brief, hesitant, and filled with a kind of desperation that left me breathless. When we pulled apart, the gravity of what we had done hit me like a freight train. "We can't do this," I said firmly, stepping back. Ethan nodded, his expression pained. "I'm sorry," he muttered before leaving the garage. That night, I lay awake, the guilt gnawing at me. I loved Mark, but what I felt with Ethan was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Over the following weeks, I avoided Ethan as much as possible, though the tension between us was palpable. Mark noticed a change. "Is everything okay?" he asked one evening, his eyes searching mine. "Just tired," I replied with a forced smile. But inside, I was falling apart. One evening, when Mark was out running errands, Ethan cornered me in the kitchen. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Ethan, please," I begged. "Let it go." "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed. "I know it's wrong, but I don't care." Before I could respond, the front door opened. Mark walked in, his eyes darting between us. "What's going on?" he asked, his tone suspicious. "Nothing," I said quickly, but the tension in the room was undeniable. The days that followed were unbearable. Mark's suspicion grew, and he began asking more questions. Finally, one evening, he confronted me. "Are you hiding something from me?" he demanded. I tried to deny it, but my face betrayed me. "It's Ethan, isn't it?" His voice shook with disbelief. I broke down, confessing everything. The moments in the garage, the kiss, the feelings I couldn't explain. Mark was devastated. That night, he packed a bag and left, taking Ethan with him. Now, the house is silent. The old Chevrolet sits unfinished in the garage, a painful reminder of the bond that shattered everything. I've tried reaching out, calls, letters, but neither Mark nor Ethan has responded. It's as though I've been erased from their lives. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator mocks me, reminding me of what I've lost. I return to the garage often, hoping for clarity, but it only deepens the ache. Here's a rewritten version of the continuation, with refined grammar, unique phrasing, and the same events intact. I ran into Mark at the grocery store one afternoon. He looked thinner, older, as though the weight of everything that had transpired had etched itself into his face. For a moment, I froze, unsure if I should approach him. But he saw me first. His expression hardened, and without hesitation, he turned away. The sting of that rejection was sharper than I anticipated, leaving me rooted to the spot, grappling with the finality of his unspoken dismissal. Desperate for some kind of reconciliation, I reached out to Mark's sister. I hoped she might be a bridge, someone who could help me make amends. She listened quietly as I poured out the story, her expression a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. When I finished, she exhaled deeply. "I don't know what you expect me to do," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "You've broken their trust. That's not something I can fix for you." Her words, though harsh, were true. With no other options, I resolved to shift my focus inward. I immersed myself in work, pouring every ounce of energy into my job. I took on volunteering opportunities, filling my days with tasks and causes that gave me purpose. Yet, no matter how much I tried to distract myself, the memories lingered. They would creep in during quiet moments. The sound of laughter in the garage, fleeting glances, and the kiss that had altered the course of everything. Months passed. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Ethan had returned to college and that Mark had moved to a new city. The news was bittersweet. On one hand, I was glad they were rebuilding their lives, but it also underscored the permanence of my isolation. The family I had worked so hard to nurture was now just a distant memory, a chapter closed forever. One day, an unexpected email arrived in my inbox. The sender was Ethan. My heart raced as I opened it, unsure of what to expect. The message was short, apologetic, and brimming with regret. "I never meant to ruin everything," he wrote. "I hope you can forgive me someday." Reading his words, I felt a pang of sorrow but also a flicker of clarity. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't just about him or Mark. It was something I needed to grant myself. Responding to Ethan's email was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I kept it brief, thanking him for reaching out and wishing him well. But I made it clear that we needed to let the past remain where it was. As if a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged had been lifted. For the first time in months, I felt the faintest glimmer of peace, a tentative step toward healing.